The job of judging the flowers in the garden competition of the little village of Blandings Parva was one which Lord Emsworth had looked forward to with pleasure. But now, even though he had managed to escape from his sister Constance, he came to the duty with an unhappy spirit. It is always unpleasant for a proud man to realize that he is no longer captain of his soul, that he is, in fact, under the big boots of a head gardener from Glasgow, and, thinking about this, he judged the gardens without paying much attention to them. It was only when he came to the last on his list that he saw something that attracted his attention. This, he saw, looking over its broken fence, was not at all a bad little garden. He opened the gate and wandered in, and a sleeping dog opened one eye and looked at him. It was one of those very ordinary hairy dogs, and its look was cold and distrustful, like that of a businessman who thinks someone is going to play a trick on him. Lord Emsworth did not see the animal. He had wandered over to some flowers, and now, bending down, he smelt them. The dog, for some reason, appeared to think that this action was criminal, and jumped up to defend his home. The next moment, the world had become full of terrible noises, and Lord Emsworth's worries were swept away in a strong desire to save his legs from harm. He was not at his best with strange dogs, except for saying, "Go away, sir," and jumping about in a surprisingly active way for a man of his age. He had done little to defend himself when the house door opened and a girl came out. "Hoy!" cried the girl, and immediately, at the sound of her voice, the dog, stopping the attack, ran towards the newcomer and lay on his back at her feet with all four legs in the air. The sight reminded Lord Emsworth of his own behaviour when in the presence of Angus McAllister. He looked at the person who had saved him. She was a small girl of uncertain age, possibly 12 or 13, though a combination of London weather and a hard life had given her face a sort of lined motherliness, which caused his lordship to treat her as someone of his own age. She was the kind of girl you see carrying a baby nearly as large as herself, and still with enough strength to lead one little brother by the hand and shout at another in the distance. Her face shone from recent soaping, and she was wearing her best dress. She wore her hair pulled tightly back from her face. "Thank you," said Lord Emsworth. "Thank you, sir," said the girl. What she was thanking him for, his lordship was not able to understand. Later, when they knew each other better, he discovered that this strange gratitude was a habit with his new friend. She thanked everybody for everything. At the moment, the habit surprised him. Lack of practice had made it a little difficult for Lord Emsworth to talk to members of the opposite sex. He tried hard to think of a subject. "Fine day?" "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." "Are you—" Lord Emsworth secretly looked at his list. "Are you the daughter of, Ebenezer Sprocket?" he asked, thinking, as he had often thought before, what ugly names some of the people who lived on his lands possessed. "No, sir. I'm from London, sir." "Ah, London, eh? Rather warm it must be there." He paused. Then, remembering his youth, "Been to many dances this season?" "No, sir." "Everybody out of London now, I suppose. What's your name?"
Gladys, sir. Thank you, sir. This is Ern."
A small boy had wandered out of the small house, a rather angry-looking boy, bearing surprisingly in his hand a large and beautiful bunch of flowers. Lord Emsworth smiled politely, and with the addition of this third person to the conversation, felt more comfortable. "How do you do?" he said. "What pretty flowers!" With her brother's arrival, Gladys had also felt happier.
"Good, aren't they?" she agreed eagerly. "I got 'em for him up at the big house. Ooh, the man the place belongs to ran after me. He found me picking them, and he shouted something and came running after me, but I threw a stone at him, and he stopped to rub his leg, and I came away."
Lord Emsworth could have corrected her idea that Blandings Castle and its gardens belonged to Angus McAllister, but his mind was so filled with admiration and gratitude that he did not do so. He looked at the girl respectfully. This wonderful woman was able to control dogs with just a word, and actually threw stones at Angus McAllister, a thing which he had never had courage to do himself in their 9 years together, and, what was more, hit him on the leg with them.
"Ern," said Gladys, changing the subject, "is wearing hair oil today."
Lord Emsworth had already noticed this, and had in fact been moving away as she spoke.
"For the feet," explained Gladys.
"The feet? Oh, you are going to the fete?"
"Yes, sir, thank you, sir."
For the first time, Lord Emsworth began to think of the event with something like pleasure. "We must look for each other there," he said kindly. "You will remember me again. I shall be wearing—" he swallowed, "a top hat."
"Ern's going to wear a straw hat that's been given him."
Lord Emsworth looked at the lucky young devil with a feeling of jealousy. He thought he knew that straw hat. It had been his companion for about 6 years, and then had been torn from him by his sister Constance and given away. He thought sadly about the lost hat. "Well, good-bye."
"Good-bye, sir. Thank you, sir."
Lord Emsworth walked thoughtfully out of the garden, and, turning into the little street, met Lady Constance. "Oh, there you are, Clarence." "Yes," said Lord Emsworth, since it was true. "Have you finished judging the gardens?" "Yes. I am just going into this last house here. I am told there is a little girl from London staying there. I want to warn her to behave properly this afternoon. I have spoken to the others." Lord Emsworth stood up straight. His glasses were not level, but in spite of this, he looked commanding. "Well, be careful what you say," he ordered. "What do you mean?" "You know what I mean. I have the greatest respect for the young lady of whom you speak. She behaved on a certain recent occasion, on 2 recent occasions, with courage and skill, and I won't have her spoken to severely. Understand that?" The real title of the party, which was held every year on the first Monday in August in the park of Blandings Castle, was the Blandings Parva School Treat, and it seemed to Lord Emsworth, watching the event from under the shadow of his tall black hat, that if this was the sort of thing schools enjoyed, he and they enjoyed very different things. The sheep and cows, to whom this park usually belonged, had been sent away to places unknown, leaving the grass to children whose activity frightened Lord Emsworth, and to adults who appeared to have lost all their self-respect. Look at Mrs. Rossiter over there, for example. On any other day of the year, when you met her, Mrs. Rossiter was a nice, quiet woman who smiled respectfully as you passed. Today, red in the face and with her hat on one side, she seemed to have gone completely mad. She was wandering here and there, drinking out of a bottle, and when she was not drinking, she was using her mouth to blow through some child's toy and make a terrible noise. The injustice of the thing hurt Lord Emsworth. This park was his own private park. What right had people to come and make noises in it? How would Mrs. Rossiter like it if one afternoon he suddenly marched into her neat little garden in the High Street and rushed about over her grass making noises? And it was always on these occasions so terribly hot. Even if July ended with snow, as soon as the first Monday in August arrived and he had to put on a stiff collar, out came the burning sun. Of course, admitted Lord Emsworth, since he was a fair man, this worked both ways. The hotter the day, the more quickly his collar melted and stopped cutting into his neck. This afternoon, for example, the collar had almost immediately become something like a wet cloth. A masterful figure came to his side. "Clarence?" Lord Emsworth's spiritual state was now such that not even the arrival of his sister Constance could add much to his discomfort. "Clarence, you look a terrible sight." "I know I do. Who wouldn't in clothes like these?" "Please don't be childish, Clarence. I cannot understand why you hate dressing for once in your life like a reasonable English gentleman and not like a beggar." "It's this top hat. It's exciting the children." "What on earth do you mean, exciting the children?" "Well, all I can tell you is that just now, as I was passing the place where they're playing football in weather like this, a small boy called out something insulting and threw a nut at it." "If you will tell me which boy it was," said Lady Constance angrily, "I will have him severely punished." "How," replied his lordship, equally angry, "can I do that? They all look alike to me, and if I knew him I would shake him by the hand. A boy who throws nuts at top hats is in his right mind. And stiff collars, stiff? That's what I came to speak to you about. Do you know what your collar looks like? Go in and change it immediately." "But, my dear Constance, immediately, Clarence, I simply cannot understand a man having so little pride in his appearance. But all your life you have been like that. I remember when we were children—" Lord Emsworth's past was not so pure that he was prepared to stand and listen to an account of it by a sister with a good memory. "Oh, all right, he said. I'll change it. Well, hurry. They are just starting tea." Lord Emsworth trembled. "Have I got to go into that tea tent?" "Of course you have, as master of Blandings Castle." A bitter laugh from the poor creature she was describing drowned the rest of the sentence.